Tonight we're discussing fractures, dislocated limbs, sprains, strains.
You want?
Okay. So let's start from the Gemara. The Gemara says, it's really a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, in Kuf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph in Shabbos, Ve'ein machzirim es hashever. You cannot put back a broken limb. Then it continues, Mish nifrika yad v'ragle, somebody's hand or leg became dislocated. La yitrefeim b'tzeinin, you cannot rub it with cold water. Avareichitz u'kedake, but you could wash it as if you're washing regularly. In a snap, if it happens to be cured, so then it's cured.
But I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Was at the beginning. What was the matter with him that he washed it? What was it?
It was dislocated.
Oh, it's not a cut,
Not a break.
And you could wash it. Oh, what's pshat wash it in hot water? I mean,
Wash it in cold water.
that's gonna help it.
At that time, I guess that was the.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, maybe you could put ice.
Oh,
We still
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Today we still put ice on it.
Yeah.
So the Gemara. No, I'm not saying halachically. I'm saying the medically. Here. So we're still holding the Mishnah. Let's we'll get down to practical soon. So the Gemara says that it says, and it quotes the Mishnah, that we can't return something which is a broken bone. Amar Rabbi Chana Baksa, Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Chana Baksa said in the name of Shmuel, Halacha machzirim es hashever. Halacha is that you could put back a broken bone. The Mishnah says you can't, you cannot. The Mishnah says you cannot put back a broken bone. And the halacha is that you could put back a broken bone. Which means Shmuel, Rav Chana Biksa, Rav Chana from Baghdad, said in the name of Shmuel that the Mishnah really is supposed to say that you could put back a broken bone.
I think that they call setting it. I mean, on Shabbos.
On Shabbos. Rabbi Bar Chana equal upon this. The Gemara says a story. Rabbi Bar Chana went to Pumpadisa. Loy all the Pirkei de Rabbi Yehuda, and he didn't go to the drasha of Rabbi Yehuda. Shadra la'ada daila, so he sent Rabbi Yehuda sent Ada his Misharis, his servant. Amrlei zil garbe. He says, go to Rabbi Bar Chana and go take his clothing from him, his cloak from him. Also garbe. So he went and confiscated his cloak from him. So Rabbi Bar Chana came to get his cloak back. He came to Rabbi Yehuda so he could get his cloak back. Also, Ashkeche the Kadarish in Machzirim as Hashever. So when Rabbi Bar Chana came to Rabbi Yehuda was in the middle of saying this Mishnah that Ein Machzirim as Hashever, you can't return his broken bone.
Why did he tell the other one, I don't remember who, to take away his coat?
because he wanted him to come to him.
Because he's learning the sugya.
It didn't say.
He wanted him to come to him.
Yeah, so he came to him. So and he found him in the middle of saying the sugya. Amarlei Hachi Amar Rav Chana Baksar Mashmul Halacha Machzina Masashaver. So Rabbi Chana said, by the way, Rav Chana Baksar said in the name of Shmuel, the halacha is really you're supposed to read it that you are allowed to return the broken bone. Amarlei, so Rabbi Yehuda told Rabbi Chana, Chana didam, Shmuel didam, the Shmieli, v'la bedine gai v'sich. Chana is from our place. Shmuel is from our place, from Padisa, and we never heard this. So it was good that I confiscated your cloak. So you should come here and tell us this halacha.
Clarify.
Okay, so that's one story. That's one part of the Mishnah. So we say that you are, the maskana is, and this is the way the Pesachim say, you are allowed to return a broken bone. Then the Gemara quotes the next part of the Mishnah. It says that if somebody's foot or hand becomes dislocated, you're allowed to put it back in place. So the Gemara says that Rav Avia Haviyasa committed Rav Yisuf. Rav Avia was sitting in front of Rav Yisuf. Shani Layadi. His hands moved out of place. He asked, Rav Avia asked Rav Yisuf, could I fix it? Could I put it back with water, or put it back with my hand? So he says aser, right? Because that's what he said in the Mishnah. He showed it, maybe it dislocated in this way. Amalei also, he says aser. While he was showing it to him, it came back into its place. Amalei Maiti Bailach says. So the Yisuf turns back to Rabbi. He said, "What is your question?" And it says clearly in the Mishnah, Mishnah Nivrika Yadi Ragala Yitrafim Etzainen. Avreiches Gedarkim. Nisrapes says in the Mishnah that if somebody's hands become dislocated, he cannot rub it with cold water, but he could only water he could wash normally, and if it becomes cured, then good. So he says. So Rabbi said, you know, my question was, well, didn't we also in the same Mishnah right before we learned you can't return a broken bone? And we said that it doesn't mean that you cannot return it, it means you could return it. So the question is, maybe
the other part about the
is also we changed also that you could do it.
Okay, I mean it's a
Amrle, he answered, Rabbi Yisuf answered him, Kulu b'chada mechisa mechisnu. Everything was woven, the Mishnah was woven together. As in Siman Shin Chavches, Sif Lamed. Misha Nishmat Perek Yadei Eiragle Mimkeime. Somebody whose hand or foot becomes dislocated from its place. La Yishav Shena Harbe B'tzeinen. You cannot rub it a lot with cold water. Shazel Rufuasi, which that's what heals it. Alareches Kedake, you wash it normally. If you snap and snap, if it becomes cured. So this is like we said, the Maskana and the Gemara, right? And later, the Mechaber brings halacha. Etzem shiyatzim keimei machzirem eisei. A bone which leaves out from its place, you're allowed to return it. Seems like a contradiction. He doesn't say you're allowed to put back a broken bone. He says a bone which shiyatzim keimei, which. So the Magen Avraham asks right away, tzarech la'ayim, you have to understand. He asks from the Gemara. The Gemara lehitiru lahachzer hashever. The Gemara only allowed to return a broken bone. The hainu etzem shenishber, a broken bone. Mishakasa harif, v'arash, v'rabin yirucham, rumazim. But if a bone which left from its place is aser. Even we said earlier, even to rub it, the Gemara says, and the Mechaber himself says that it's aser. Like the Mechaber himself said in Siflamet earlier. That was also what we said in the story of Rav Avia in the Gemara. When a child is born, sometimes they have to put together the limbs in the right places. So only the first day you're allowed to do that. Afterwards, you can't do that because it's similar to building, to Baina. Tzarech Ian. He leaves off for the Tzarech Ian, the Magen Avraham.
Wait, so he brings Epis a thing about a child that was just born, something? What?
Yeah.
That's a Gemara Shulchan Aruch.
It's brought in Gemara, Eimatzim, it's lad, but it's in the same Mishnah, I'm saying really. I'm saying that really that Mishnah.
But wait, the Magen, I missed something.
The Magen Avraham said that there's an issue.
Yeah.
The whole time we're really discussing an issue of refuah.
Yeah.
That you're not allowed to do refuah medicine on Shabbos.
Yeah.
But now he throws in another factor. He says, and when you're putting a bone back into place, this is similar to building. Like it's not menatera, but it's similar. Like he brings that we find halacha about a child whose bones are not all in place when he's born. So only at the beginning you could, but afterwards, after the first day, you can't put it together. So why? Because it's similar to building. So you see, also over here, putting it back into place is also like building. So therefore he finishes off, he says, Lachin ein lahakol. The Magen Avraham said, therefore we cannot be lenient about this, about putting a bone back to its place, which only, like the Gemara says, only a broken bone you could
So how does he explain Shulchan Aruch?
So he doesn't explain Shulchan Aruch, he has a tzarechiyim. He leaves off the question. And well, we want to discuss that in a second. What are we going to say with the Shulchan Aruch? From Alter Rebbe and also in Shin Chav Ches.
What page is on the side?
Second, it's towards the end. Page Taf Reish Hey. It's Sif Lamed Vav. Sif Lamed Vav, that's one of them, but then there's another one which we're going to see in Sif Nun Beis. Let's see, Lamed Vav is Misha Nishma Perek Yadei Ragli. If somebody's foot or hand becomes dislocated, which means that the bone left from its place. You cannot rub it with in cold water. That's what heals it. You wash it normally, and if it becomes cured, it's cured. Now, if we go to page Tafresh Tes, Sif Nun Beis, it says Etzem sheyatzim imkeime, a bone which left its place. Asr lachzire, you cannot return it to its place. Because it's similar to building, like the Magen Avraham. And besides for that, every medicine on Shabbos is a problem. Even to rub it a lot in cold water, it's aser, like we said before. But a bone which broke, you could return it to its place.
So he says
if you're not going to put it back to its place, there's a danger for that limb. In a place where there's sakanas aver, you weren't geyser, that you're allowed to put it back. Yeah, so actually, Kseisa Shulchan, I think it might be from the Kaf HaChaim, that he says that also making a limb, if a limb's going to become schwach, become is not going to function properly, that's also called a danger for the limb.
In other words, here we're saying a bone. The other simon, the earliest if we learned, it says Avraham. I mean, right? I mean, it's a different language.
So, yeah. So this bone, this if it's not going to put it back to,
that's the broken bone.
Broken bone.
Yeah, but I'm saying, in one place he says like Avraham Nishmat, and another place says Etzem Shiyatzavim Kam. You know, with the dislocation issue, not the broken.
He goes.
We know you're allowed.
Right. So this he goes basically like the Magen Avraham. The Rebbe is basically going with the Mahalach from the Magen Avraham.
Okay.
So what are we going to do about the Mechaber, right? What are we going to do about the steer in the Shulchan Aruch?
I have to understand what he's saying.
So the answer for that is. So the Mishnah Brura has an answer. The Mishnah Brura says he brings from the Sefer Atzi Shittim. The Mishnah Brura says that the difference between the two places in the Mechaber.
Well, we're in. Wait, I'm
Sif
sorry.
Nun Beis.
What? Which? Oh, here Nun Beis on page Taf Reish Tes.
Is that when it says that you're not allowed to, if it goes out of place, that you're not allowed to put it back, is only if it's only moved out a drop. It didn't totally pop out of its place, out of its socket. It's also moved out a little bit. And this, which it says in the Mechaber, says that you could, if it pops out of its place, then you could put it back. It's talking about if the whole limb pops out. So then
it has a kind of like a broken bone or something like that.
So then it's just like a broken bone, right? That's the way he wants to. Mishnah Brura wants to explain it. I saw that Tilo David wanted to say a different answer. Wanted to say that the things which you use medicine. So then we're more worried about shchikas hamamanim. We're more worried about Isra Refuah. He wants to say that if it's dislocated, if it totally pops out, so then we usually don't use. We just pop it back in. We don't usually use medicine. On the other hand, when it moves a little bit out, and we do. Different answers, but that's basically the gist of their answers. What's a side point? What about cracking your knuckles? Could you crack your knuckles on Shabbos? Could you say it's similar to Baina? It's an interesting thing that the Kseis HaShulchan is similar to building.
Well, I just want to say that the most recent scientific research, which I read, I don't know, if it's probably less than 20 years ago, says the reason it makes it pop is that there are gas bubbles that you're popping.
It's not that it's taking it out from any.
I didn't read it in connection with Hilchos Shabbos. I remember there was an article.
Yeah, so he says.
They talked about
Interesting.
this, like a scientific zach. I would say less than 20 years. I might be wrong. Why they do it is an under zach, because you feel like that there's a knot and it relieves you. I mean, if you could live without it also. But I mean, no, it's like when you knee. You're sitting in one place, you need, so like you have a feeling, you go like this, and he goes, and then like it's like relief. I mean, you become the guy, and you can go without it too. But I mean, you're asking me why people.
So he says that it doesn't really leave the place. It doesn't really. You're not really undoing it and putting it back. Nothing. So he says it's not a problem. That's for sure.
I once dislocated. I was playing golf. I dislocated my finger. So it's actually bent up like this, and I could not straighten it. So I had to go to the doctor, and he was able to straighten it.
What did he do?
He proved me a certain way. That when you have a free knuckles, nothing is out of place. It's just internal fluid.
Right. So, okay, so now the question is practically. So I just was speaking to emergency doctor for half an hour, just right before we started. No, for the share.
Oh, okay. I got one.
He's a firm person. He lives in Philadelphia. I learn with him over the phones a lot of times. So I decided to ask him some questions.
Okay.
Because emergency, you want to know,
Yeah, sure.
on Shabbos,
Yeah.
when is an emergency now when is there a danger for a limb? When is there life-threatening? And the differences, it makes a difference. Because the halacha is by when a person has a sakana, danger for his limb, for the limb might not function properly, so he's allowed to do any Isser D'Rabbanan. He's allowed to do something min HaTorah with the shinei, not the usual way, and he's allowed to use a goy. One thing is he can't do something Isser min HaTorah in a normal manner. Something was life-threatening, of course, you could do Koch Nefesh, Zdech the Shabbos, and you could do even Isser min HaTorah, and it's a mitzvah to do Isser min HaTorah. And then there's things which is no danger to the limb, but it's very painful.
So that's Chayil Shem Sakana.
So either it could be a Chayil Shem Sakana, which if it's very painful, that it can't function, that he can't function, not that the limb can't function. And then you have someone just has an ache, right? Different levels. So I asked him, when is a danger for the limb and he needs and it's emergency. So saying a big, I think practically there's a lot of cases. I'm saying nobody wants to lose a limb, right? Nobody wants to lose the function of a limb, God forbid, chas v'shalom. So, but the question would be, if Hatzalah comes, Hatzalah's, if Yidden are driving let's say we're talking about Yidden are driving the ambulance. So when could you take the ambulance? Or when could you ask a Yid to drive you? And when could you, or when should you go to the car service down the block and ask that the guy should drive you to the emergency room? That's the question. In other words, if it's a sakanas aver, losing a limb, chas v'shalom, saying if a person is going to procrastinate, if he's going to wait, it might cause him to lose a function. If he's going to wait until after Shabbos, so when could he use a Yid to drive into the hospital? Because it's a life-threatening. Or when should he ask a car service to drive him? Or when could he say, I'm going to stay home and I'll go to the urgent care tonight, or go to the emergency room tonight, or go tomorrow to the doctor? Yeah. Well, then.
I was saying that. That's a separate side.
Yeah.
We spoke in how.
Yeah. So. See, many people, he was telling me that many people come to the emergency room. Some people could come for psychological reasons, which means that it's not really an emergency sometimes. It just, psychologically, they feel that they have to go to the emergency room just to calm them down. Other people will say it's not a big deal, I don't need to go. But some people just go to calm them down.
But you see that the zach is a person by himself doesn't know, let's say, if it's mamish an emergency,
right.
Sakana. Plus, people that have an ongoing medical issue, when they have a symptom that's like from that machla, they go crazy.
Right.
Even if it's not, it has
right.
to be checked out.
Right, of course, for sure. Yeah, we have to use common sense. That's the first rule. Common sense.
No, so I'm saying, so regarding the two, it's like it's an emergency, and then they'll say that's what emergency medicine. They can say go home,
Right. So It says like this. If somebody has let's say hurt the. If somebody hurt their finger a little bit, let's say they're like saying playing ball and they bang it into a ball or something. Or somebody twisted their foot a little bit and it's a little sore. It could function. It's just sore. You don't want to step on it. Somebody bangs into, just walks and bangs the shoulder into something. It's a little sore. You could get it checked out, but it's not an emergency. As long as he's saying if even if it hurts, but if it's something that's in increasing pain, continuous pain, increasing, you want to get it checked out as soon as possible. Or let's say that would be pain. If it were pale, if you see that the limb is pale, that there's no blood circulation there, it's cool, it's cold. Another one would be if it's a certain limb where there's usually a pulse and you don't feel the pulse in that limb. Another one would be if it's not functioning. If you don't feel it, or if it's disformed in some sort of way, like a foot that's facing the other way. Obviously, if it's open, so those things are something which you would want to, or a dislocated shoulder, dislocated hip, which he told me is not as common. So these things, if you told me it's a dislocated shoulder, so then if you're not going to take care of it right away, so it could make damage to the muscle and could make it much more difficult to put it back. So these things are things which are sakana for the limb. There's a danger for the limb if you're going to wait. If you're not going to bring it on Shabbos to be taken care of, so you don't take care of it right away. So then there's a danger for the limb. In these cases, either something which needs a special transport. You don't need a special transport for these things, unless if it's an injury for if it's a back neck injury. So then you want a person needs to take a stretcher or something. You don't go to a car service for that because you have to be handled correctly. If a person can't walk on it, not just because it's sore, but it can't function, so then it's a sakana for the limb. But if it's an opened break, let's say it's bleeding, it's opened, the bone is opened, it's open fraction. So then it's something which a person can get a bone infection, which has a shalom. So that's much more complicated and of course if a person life-threatening, you would say something of the spine. Spine is something which you don't want to play around with. The spine. If a person has anything broken in the spine or the neck, if the head, something, any of these things, so then it's something nefashis. So you don't want to take any chances with that. You would want to go straight to the hospital, even with ambulance for those things. But anything which is not which is just a little sore, so they're just going to tell you to put your foot up and put ice on it, and that's basically it. There is some time, but but it all depends, of course, on the person has to look at the situation. He has to see how much pain it is. If a person a door has a shalom closed on a person's finger, so that could be a danger to his finger. I'm saying if he's not going to take care of it, let's say if it's dislocated or something, a dislocated finger, so it's going to be a crooked finger if he's not going to take care of it as soon as possible. A lot of it, but if it's something which is just hurts and it's like we said, it's not. He wanted to say it's the 5 P's. He had like a 5 P's thing. I don't know the words, but I know the ideas. He said the pain. If it's like the pain is getting worse and continuous. If it's pale, if the place where the broken area is pale, it's discolored, it's cold or something, so there's no circulation. Sorry?
Discolored.
He said if it's also this, if it's disfigured, if it changes like a foot, if the foot is facing the other way, it like moved to a different way or something, or if there's no pulse. Pulse is another P he said over there. So any of these things, so it's a sakanas aver, and you're allowed to do a derabanan, you're allowed to do a issa derabanan, you're allowed to do something which is asim in atayra, not the normal way. But you cannot do something which is asim in atayra the normal way. So you shouldn't use atzala, unless obviously, if we're discussing if somebody who's compromised in other ways medically, older person, if they're gonna have this medical complication, it could lead to another medical complication, and for children or people who are it's so over there you can maybe say it's sakanas nefashis, because these people are fragile, as you could say, and you need to be so that's practically. So when we said that a dislocated limb, we said that maybe the Magen Avraham, Alter Rebbe said that you can't put it back to its place. Because obviously we're talking about if you know for sure that there's not going to be any sakana for the limb. Because if you know there's going to be a sakana for a limb, which now many times it is, or there's a suffix that there might be, so then you're able to put it back, to put it back in its place. Saying usually we don't know how to do it ourselves, so you could ask, you go to a doctor.
You're saying there's a room to be made where we're not clear what's happening here. So that would be based on what this emergency medicine.
Right.
No, when you say sakanat aver, does that mean that, let's say if it's not taken care of now, you wait, let's say it happened, this incident happened Friday night, you can wait until, let's say, Shabbat, you'll see, his life won't be in danger, but the limb might be permanently disabled.
Yes, that's what we're discussing, yeah.
So even so, he has to be permanently disabled rather than to use Hatzalah.
Well, we have a choice. What he should do is he should ask a car service, a Geisha driver, to drive him to emergency room.
It's not available. And even the car service won't take it if you don't pay.
Well, you could do it Issa D'Rabbanan. You could pay him. You could pay him money as only Issa D'Rabbanan.
Take the money out of the street to go to the.
So you can ask him to come take the money from you.
Okay, but so forget about that. So if just let's say it's a guy is not available. Like if it happens in
so
Israel,
you could do
like the plenty places in Israel, guy is just simply not available.
So you could do a shinei by you could do something which is min ha'Torah and do it in an unusual way.
But you're not a doctor, you don't know how to do it.
No. You could go to a doctor by doing something in an unusual way, which means you could call let's say call on a phone using let's say the back of your fingers, dial with the back of your fingers. It's something which is, let's say, if it's lights, it could be calling. Not necessarily is a problem in HaTorah, but if there's light, if it makes a light, depends what type of light. But let's say it's calling is an issue in HaTorah. Let's say, which is not necessarily. So then you could do it in an unusual way, call in an unusual way for help. So you could do something which is awesome in HaTorah. You could do with a shinei.
Okay, but you're going to cause the Jews to come.
No, call 911.
No, saying like in Israel, there was nobody available.
So they could come and they could see what the situation is, and they could the medical tell the medical. Are you saying they're going to come? You're saying asking the Yid to come.
Yeah.
That's what they do. That's what the derech haolam. If you got wounded b'Shabbat, but it's a hospital,
No, but we're saying if something is only something which is only danger to a limb,
מה זה לים?
it's aver.
אוקיי.
זה לא סכנת נפשות.
אבל גם עבר זה חשוב, לא?
זה בטח חשוב, but I'm saying that you could only do something which is asur midrabanan, or you could do something which is asur min HaTorah with a shinui. Only something by sakanas nefashos could you use or even a suffix sakanat nefashot. Then you could do even a regular everything, even there's no Shabbos, do whatever you want. But when it's something which is only a sakanas aver, so then a person can't he can't do normal things min HaTorah, which are also min HaTorah. You can only do it with a shinei, or do with something which is
but you can do what you want to do, only with the shinei.
Yeah.
But you have to do. You
yeah.
do what you.
Yeah. So he's asking. He's putting me to the wall. He's trying to tell me.
In Israel.
He's trying to tell me if let's say a place in Israel, there's no goyim around.
But there is in Israel a lot of people. That's the job. That's what they do. In case of emergency shutter, they come to help you.
Right. But he's saying if I'm gonna call Atzala, who's gonna come? I'm calling a Yid to come.
But this Yid is ready to help people in Shabbat. That's his job.
Right, but he can't come if it's only sakanas. If he can't do something which is asur min HaTorah. If it's only sakanas aver. He's cornering me. He's telling me, what are you going to do in this situation? That's what he's doing. He's asking me.
So wait until you lose the ever and go Saturday night.
No, you're not going to lose the aver. You're not going to lose the aver. If we're talking, remember, if something there's a suffix. Let's say if a person's getting an infection, a bad infection, or something that could be, or a person who's fragile, you can't play games. You have to call Atzala. We're talking if you know for sure that this is the.
But if you know for sure, wait until Saturday night. The person might.
If you could wait, he's saying if it happened Friday night, could you wait until Saturday night?
Yeah.
Until Matzah Shabbos. He's saying it's a long time. Some things, if a person's not going to do it, it's in 24 hours, so it could be a big problem. It could make him.
So you go to the other side. If it's a problem, so already you allowed already to.
No, but it's going to cause him to that it shouldn't function as good as it would if he would have went right away for his whole life.
That's what I'm saying. So if you know it's not going to be, so you can call from the beginning. L'chatchila you can call.
Yeah. Okay, maybe that's a different shinui. So some places they have. Some people have that the Hatzalah in some communities is lachatchila they have goyim who are the ones who are driving, who are driving the ambulances. Right.
I never heard of that. Maybe it is.
So a lot of times,
Maybe it's true, but I never heard of it.
I tell you, a lot of people. No, here they have not. Here they have in Borough, in Williamsburg.
I think to drive back,
Driver.
leave the car.
No, they have
on
drivers
the street
sitting.
And they have a guy that brings it back. I think. You know what I mean? Because bringing it back, it's not.
You drive to the hospital and you come in walking, whatever. It's what you do.
But also, I'm saying if there's someone who's a doctor, if you live, I'm saying lives in the neighborhood, someone who knows medicine, who's. The thing is also a lot of times. What?
No, in Borough Park when I was a kid, there was a sent from a doctor. You know, people who got it. You know what I'm saying? They're going to his house. I think Lance was there, like 17
Right.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So. Yeah, hopefully a person should never have to be in such a situation. But
Amen.
yeah. Should only have preventive medicine. You shouldn't have any such problems.
Amen.